Welcome back, folks. Today we will be talking about clinical trials. So last time we were together, we were talking about preclinical drug development before drugs reach a human. But in clinical trials, what we'll learn today through phases 1 through 4 is that we are learning about how the drugs get into humans for testing. Excuse me. So we'll be spending our time today talking through the rest of this chart. How do drugs make their way from a lab to your home? But let's first talk a little bit about why clinical trials are necessary, right? A lot of the scientific research being done in labs is trying to understand how the drug works, right? What is it doing inside of cells to make it functional? But a lot of that lab work doesn't really confirm that the drug will work in a human. Preclinical work is performed on cells apart from a human body. So for example, in my research, I work on human cancer cells, but I grow these cells in a dish. I'm not doing experiments on a human. And so these cells aren't replicating the human body, right? Additionally, a lot of preclinical research is performed on mice or rats, for example. And again, mice are a model system that might help us understand how a drug works or if it works in mice, but mice aren't humans. And so we can't understand if a drug works until we test it in humans. Of course, a lot of times we need to do research before we get a drug in humans, right? To make sure that this drug isn't just super toxic. So preclinical work is incredibly important, but not sufficient. Additionally, without doing some research in humans, we won't understand what the appropriate dose of a drug is, how much, how little to give, and we won't understand what side effects are in humans and whether or not they are acceptable in order to use the drug. Let's jump into it, starting with phase 1. So phase 1 of clinical trials is generally less than a year. Largely, the point of phase 1 is to ask, is the drug safe? Okay? This will be tested on a small number of people, between 20 and 80 people. These people are usually completely healthy with no major types of illnesses. And they're giving this drug to people to make sure the people don't get sick from the drug. So we're looking for major side effects, and we're looking to find kind of a good amount to use. What is the optimal dose? This is called the therapeutic index. The therapeutic index is on the right shown to you. This is kind of the range of doses between when the drug is effective and when the drug starts to be toxic. So that's what's going on in phase 1. Largely, is this drug safe to give to people? Once a drug passes phase 1 clinical trials, onto phase 2. Here we're asking a more detailed question. Is the drug effective? We know it's safe, but does it work in humans? This will be a larger population size, so 100 to 300 people, for example. Oftentimes, the patients in a phase 2 clinical trial have the disease the drug is there to target, and they're often in advanced stages of the disease. At this point, of course, we're always continuing to look for safety and side effects, especially since we start using the drug on more and more people. We will expect to see more side effects. Now, phase 2 will be at least a year long normally. Recall, since we're looking at efficacy of the drug, we need to give this drug some time to work, right? We need to recruit 100 to 300 people, so this phase takes more time. If a drug passes phase 2 clinical trials, we are on to phase 3, okay? And so in phase 3, we are looking at both drug safety and efficacy. And here we're going to use a much larger population, many hundreds to 3,000 people, for example. In this image on the right, saying 1,000 to 3,000 people. Here we're looking at different patient populations, not just those with the most advanced stages of disease, but maybe all stages of disease. We'll look at how different doses work. We'll look at different combinations of therapies, maybe the drug you're developing with another drug that's already been approved. And during this time, we're looking for better efficacy data, more specific, more detailed data. And again, we expect side effects to become more apparent as we use this drug in a larger population of people. This stage, again, will take more than 1 year, right? We have to recruit thousands of people, and we need to monitor the efficacy of this drug over time, maybe over many months or even a year. If a drug passes phase 3 clinical trials, it is then time for FDA review. So the Food and Drug Administration, what they do is they will kind of look at all of the data from the clinical trials, and they will ask, is this drug safe and effective? You need kind of this outside oversight to confirm that, maybe the scientists aren't telling a better story than actually exists, right? Think of this as being similar to peer review. The FDA is like a peer reviewer of the clinical trial. Is it good or not? And after FDA approval, the drug will be officially approved. So that drug at that point has gone from the research lab through clinical trials and can get into patient hands. Up next, what happens after a drug is FDA approved?